Welcome into the CBS Sports Network, where we have an exciting hour of talking hoops, and we are going to talk about some of the best freshmen in the country, the latest recruiting intel, and then we're going to break down the Big Ten Conference. But first, we have one of the very best freshmen in college basketball set to join us here on the show. Let's welcome in Louisville's Mikel Brown. Mikel, welcome to the show, my man.
Man, thank you for having me.
All right, so I have watched you play, I think, since you were a freshman in high school. I was trying to remember the last time, but we're going to assume that people watching at home today don't necessarily have that exact same context. So I'm going to ask you to kind of take them down memory lane a little bit for me. When you were a freshman in high school, how tall were you?
I was exactly 5'9". 5'9".
So you have grown, we're going to say 8 inches like in the last 4 years? Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, when I use terms like late bloomer, I just want to articulate like exactly what that means. And the cool thing about watching you play is I feel like every year you either added something new to your game or, we saw you in a different context that revealed something else. But the thing to me this summer, it was actually USA basketball. You were getting ready for the FIBA World Cup. I saw like a level of athleticism in you that I hadn't noticed before. So my question is, when did you really feel like your physical tools, your explosiveness were going to new levels?
Man, I'm honestly, going back to like my early days of, playing basketball when I first started. I mean, I've always been fast. Like I was always fast. I was always, explosive, like in terms of just like speed. I think when it really started to change for me, when my foot grew from like an 11 and a half to like a 14 within like 4 months. So,
Yeah.
And that was that period in ninth grade. I was 5'9" with a size 14 shoe. So you go look at me, you look at it, my body doesn't fit my feet. Like my feet doesn't fit my body at all. Like,
Right.
So I think, it just came with me, getting control of my body. Right. And just adapting to, the growth spurt and all the, the inches that I've grown up on like the past couple of years. And I think now that, being in college and us, constantly lifting every single day and, my body continuing to grow, I'm starting to adapt now. And I think that I'm starting to, it's starting to come back, that speed that I used to have back early on, that explosiveness and especially, jumping high at the rim now. I think I'm just, continuing every single day just to try to figure out my body more and be able to be as explosive as I can. So
I remember the exact moment. I think it was in June in training camp. You went down the lane and you hammered this lefty dunk. It was a half court possession. It was in traffic. And I was like, whoa, I haven't seen that before. Like I'm used to the threes. I'm used to, the passes with the left hand, but that level of explosiveness was something I had not seen before out of you. What we have seen, Mikel, was like you could always shoot the basketball. You talk about your speed, but you also had a very advanced early skill set. What was that like in terms of when you go through such a big growth spurt? How does the shooting have to adjust? Like when you grew 3 inches, did you all of a sudden have to like rework your mechanics or develop a comfort shooting the basketball? Because when we look back on your game, we're like, hey, he was always skilled, but that's not an easy thing to grow that rapidly and have your body change that rapidly and still maintain that natural skill set with the ball.
I wouldn't say anything mechanically, but early on in those early stages of my early high school basketball career, I used to push the ball a lot, just because I didn't have the physical strength to be able to shoot from a distance without having to push it, and I used to thumb it. I used to thumb the ball a lot. So I think with me growing and my arms getting longer and my hands getting bigger, just adapting to having a more fluent shot. Like, as I continue to get stronger throughout every single year and throughout every single season, just adapting to, having to get a good feel, because my hands get big, your hands get bigger. So now you have to adjust. Now it feels like the ball is, technically small in a sense, in your hands. So me and my dad definitely made an emphasis on, not thumbing the ball. Like you're getting stronger, so it should be coming off fluently off your right hand. But that's, like you said, that skill set has always been there.
Yeah.
It's really just, putting the work in and just constantly getting in the gym and just getting solid reps to make sure, your knife is sharpened. That's what I call it. So it was just an everyday process, and I think it's starting to work out. So.
Yeah, I would say so. Now, you mentioned your dad. We have seen him coach you at various stops along the way, and be a mentor for you. But now he's watching in the stands and the rest of the family. How has that dynamic been for you and dad? I know he's been instrumental in your development so far.
Yeah, absolutely. He's always been that supportive system for me, man. Honestly, you could say like various years. He really only coached me my last year in AAU ball as the head coach, and then he was the assistant coach at DME, right? But all those other years, man, he's been supportive, and he's been there through every single step of the way. And he's, like you said, he's my biggest fan, but he also is my biggest critic in terms of, he's making sure I'm on top of my stuff. We go back and watch film. Hey, you ain't make this read. You should have made that read. Okay, that was a good read right there, but you could have did this, right? He's always critiquing me and just making sure I'm trying to maximize the to full capacity and what I'm capable of. And I think he knows, just because, we put so much work in since I first picked up a basketball. So he's always been that supportive system, and he's still here to this day. He'll pop up in practices every now and then. Me and him still get on the court. We still get our work in. He doesn't change, and I think that's what has helped me throughout my development. And also, I want to, give a shout out to my brother and my sister and my mom as well. They're a big part of this as well, just because of that supportive system. My mom tries to make every single game, every single home game. Especially it's hard just because my sister, she plays volleyball. My brother's, starting to come up in the ranks in basketball as well. He's probably going to play 15s. He's going to play 15U next year on the 3SSB circuit. So, just to have them in my corner and them being my support system and those people that I can just lean on every single day, man, it takes a toll on me, and I'm very appreciative of it. So.
No doubt. Very cool, man. Very cool. All right. Well, let's talk about this year, because you're averaging 17 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds per game on a Louisville team that's got like legitimate Final Four aspirations here. So my first question is just like, what has this transition been like for you, acclimating to college basketball?
Well, first and foremost, 17, 5, and 3. I mean,
no, switch it.
I feel like I'm not playing.
Turnover. That's a turnover for me. I turned it over.
Hey, honestly, I feel like I'm not even playing my best basketball yet. Especially just because obviously I haven't been shooting it well from the 3-point line, but I mean, I put the work in. I know eventually it's gonna fall, but to go on and to adapt to this type of ball, college basketball is very, very physical. It's very fast. It's very detailed. Coaches been on us and from day one about details. I think that's just a separator, man. It's just me being able to adapt to that physicality and that level of speed out there on the floor. And I think I've adapted to it well, just because that's just how we play in general. We play very, very fast. We get up and down. We want more possessions in the game. And I think, that is going to help me in the long run, just because, I can play in the half court, but I also could play. I can play in the full court. I can play very fast and get the ball up and down. And also, being able to get my teammates involved as well. I think that's been a separator for me. And they've definitely, especially, we're an old team. So I got a lot of teammates that I could definitely lean on and ask questions about, just because they've been through the ranks of the college basketball. Just to be able to have them as my support system, and just to, have them, encouraging me every single day, it goes a long way for me. So.
You mentioned the 3-point shooting, and I think anybody who knows you just expects that that's going to continue to tick up as the season goes on. But what else, as the year goes on, are you looking to improve upon now? You're only 5 weeks into the season. So what else is there for you to show as we move into conference play?
Man, just taking it one day at a time. honestly, everything I can improve on. I can be better in all aspects. Whether that's, cutting down my turnovers, whether that's, getting my teammates more involved, whether that's, me making shots, or whether that's me playing, being better off the ball defensively. It could go either. It could go hand in hand. I just think the biggest thing is, finding a way to win and just taking it a game at a time, with this squad, man, and just continuing to get better.
All right, so that's going to lead you to my last question, because listen, as a prospect, everyone knows, like, you hear everyone say, like, don't look at the mock drafts, don't look at the rankings, don't look at any of that stuff. And that's all right, from the guy who does them. You shouldn't look at them. But it's inevitable, right? Somebody's going to hit you with a text or whatever. So my question is, like, how do you balance working for your individual goals, both in the short and long term, and trying to quarterback this team that does have legitimate Final Four aspirations?
Yeah, at the end of the day, man, it's all about winning. It's all about winning for me, and that's how it's always been, especially from day one, man. My dad, the main thing we want to do is just win at all costs, whether that's you scoring 30 or whether that's you getting four points and 5 assists. As long as you make an impact on the game, I think everything else is going to take care of itself. So that's what I would say about that question, man, is, as long as you're winning, everything else will take care of itself. All the accolades will come behind it. But I'm staying focused right now on just, leading this team to winning ball games.
All right. Well, you are doing a heck of a job. Louisville is 8-1. We know you've got Memphis and then Tennessee on the horizon before league play. You're getting ready for that. So we appreciate you taking some time for us here on the CBS Sports Network. Mikel, it's been awesome to watch you play over the years. It's been great to watch you literally continue to improve with each passing year. Wish you nothing but the best throughout the rest of the season here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. That is Mikel Brown. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come right back on the CBS Sports Network and talk about some of the other surprise freshmen early in the college basketball season. Welcome back into the CBS Sports Network, where we are talking college basketball and apparently all dressing alike. That was not planned, although it is quite embarrassing. Anyway, moving on. The freshmen have been the talk of college basketball this season. Obviously, A.J. DeBonta had a huge game this week at the Jimmy V Classic. Cameron Boozer been arguably the best player in college basketball. Darren Peterson just starting to come back, and who could forget Caleb Wilson's start? But simultaneously, there have been a number of surprise freshmen who have exceeded expectations. So, Bossi, I'm going to start with you and give you your flowers, because you were the captain, I'd say, of the Amari Allen bandwagon a year ago as we were going through that ranking process, and he has more than lived up to our expectations so far at Alabama.
Yeah, no doubt. Amari Allen is a guy that we had ranked number 64 overall in the class of 2025 versus number 102 in the industry composite. He's averaging 10.9 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 3.7 assists a game, and has 3 starts in the 9 games that Alabama played. And what stood out to Allen for me was I thought that he was a perfect, and I mean perfect fit for Nate Oates and what he wants to do. Now, I know there were some questions about his jump shot, but he's been very good making them, I think, 36% of his threes. But the biggest thing is he can be a jumbo playmaker. He can play the 3 or the 4 for you. And Nate Oates, man, and he's a guy who hates the mid-range. Guess who else hates a mid-range jump shot? Amari Allen. He has 35 made field goals this year. You ready for this? 22 are at the rim, 13 are from 3. Not a single from the mid-range. He's a guy who fits everything he wants, and he embraces what he wants. And it's a big reason for why he's been so successful.
Bossi came with the receipts today. How about that? I would double down on his positional versatility being huge for Alabama and Nate Oates. Trotter and I talked a lot last week about the amount of teams playing with 2 true bigs. Alabama is not one of those teams. They're playing 4 out. And Amari Allen's ability to shift back and forth between that 3 and 4 spot, I think, has been huge. Trotter, I wanted to talk to you about Shelton Henderson. This was a top 25 recruit in last year's class, originally committed to Duke, but when Jay Lucas left to take over the Hurricane program, Shelton Henderson followed him, and he has delivered in a big way. He was great on the road at Ole Miss last week, 18, 9, and 5. What is it about this Hurricane freshman that has impressed you most?
I think it's the defense. Miami so far is a top 15 unit, and they got great individual defenders, right? But I think for the most part, Shelton Henderson might be their second or third best defender so far this year. And you also see the type of trust that he's gained from this staff. Like when they play BYU, he's guarding Richie Saunders, switching onto AJ DeBonsa, and also getting some turns on Rob Wright. When he plays Ole Miss, he's getting the AJ Storr assignment. So that 6'6", 240-pound, he's a grown man. Like he doesn't look like a freshman. They're not treating him like a freshman with some of those defensive assignments that you're talking about. And then the rebounding, the effort, the motor, the size, being able to get downhill. Like he doesn't really shoot it yet. He's struggled from the free throw line. It isn't really a threat from the 3-point range, but everything else has certainly been there. And he just has impacted winning early. He's a guy that I feel like they just don't want to take off the floor, and for good reason.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, fellas, the guy that I want to give a shout out to is Stanford's Ebuka Okorie. We were the only national outlet to put him in our final rankings last year, and he's really lived up to it. He had 25 or more points in 4 of his 6 games to start the season for the Cardinals. Now, more recently, he's had to adjust because he's played his way up to the top of the scouting report, and programs like St. Louis and UNLV have really focused their defensive efforts on him. But the bottom line is he has still been way better than expected, averaging over 21 points per game this year. The thing that stands out to me is that he looks twitchier to me than he was a year ago. I mean, 13 months ago, this guy was committed to Harvard before Kyle Smith and the staff came in and really prioritized him. And he's got a lot of untapped potential still. He's only shooting 48% at the rim, 31% from behind the 3-point line. But he's been creative with his handle. He's shown an ability to get separation off the bounce. He's playing with newfound confidence to me. And sometimes we see this when a guy gets into a college weight room, all of a sudden the body and the explosiveness can go to a new level. I think that's been the case with him. And then the final thing I would say is that he's taken tremendous care of the basketball. So despite all the volume and the usage he's getting, he's averaging about 3 assists per game, but only turning the ball over once. And for a freshman who's averaging over 21 points per game, that is just a huge accomplishment. All right, we're going to go around the horn one more time. And Bossi, I don't want this to go to your head, man, but we're going to do this again. Keaton Wagler, again, there was only one group to rank him last year, and it was us. And it came because you said to me, whatever you do, don't take this guy out of the rankings. I still haven't seen him play live, but tell everybody what it was that you saw in this guy and why you were so adamant that he be included in our rankings.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't know how much credit I can take on this one with Keaton Wagler, because I think you'll remember also this summer I had a conversation with you where I was like, we have vastly underranked this guy. We probably need to have ranked him at least 100 spots higher. I had a chance to go back and review one more film, but he's a kid who's right in my backyard, and maybe I was a little bit too hard on him, but he's a 2-time state champion coming out of high school. He's 6'5", he's skilled, he's a high character kid, a hard worker. I was worried about some physical limitations for him when he got to college, because he still needs to get stronger. He can be knocked off his line, but the shooting, everything tracks. He's averaging 14.7 points, 5.2 rebounds a game, 2.6 assists per game. If you go to his synergy numbers, he's at he's over 1.1 shot per or 1.1 point per possession, which for a freshman is incredible. His true shooting percentage is at 62%, and he's another guy that has embraced analytics and is an analytical dream. He's taken 46 threes, only 7 mid-range jumpers, 41 makes this year, 21 threes, 21 layups, 17 threes. He's another guy who, knows who he is. He's got a lot of potential as a playmaker that he's still going to expand on. And he's just a guy that I think we look back, we forget sometimes how much we have to value winners and leaders in the rankings and guys who have the maturity to take that next step. And Keaton, those are a few things that I don't want to say I overlooked him. I probably didn't value enough. And, frankly, living here in Kansas City, the high school basketball isn't that great. And he was on a loaded squad, so I probably maybe underestimated a little bit just how good he was. But he's a kid that's really well liked around the city, and everyone around here is really excited for all of his success. And as much as I'd love to take a pat on the back for making sure that we ranked him, I probably need to be smacked around just as much for not insisting that we rank him higher.
Yeah, next week we're not going to allow you to dress like us. That is your punishment. Trotter, we will talk more about Wagler later when we start to break down the Big Ten, but I wanted to ask you about Derek Dixon, because when Seth Trimble went down with that injury, public safety announcement, be very cautious when you're doing the lat pull down in the weight room. There were a lot of concerns about this North Carolina team, but Derek Dixon has stepped in and provided some real kind of rare, I would say, just composure and stability for a freshman. What have you seen?
He's cold, man. Like he just like late game clock situations against Kentucky, he's able just to go get buckets. And I think we're starting to see him play with a bunch of confidence. And that late game showing against Kentucky, he parlayed that right into the Georgetown game where he was one of the best guards on the floor and he's just automatic from downtown. So I think when I think of freshmen, it's like, is the list of reasons to keep you on the floor longer than the list to take you off? And for Carolina right now, it absolutely is a long list of why Derek Dixon needs to be on the floor. He makes good decisions when the ball are in his hands. The ball moves. He makes open shots. He doesn't force things. He doesn't make a bunch of freshman mistakes. Defensively, I thought he was terrific against Malik Mack, who's been one of the best point guards in the Big East. Mack went 3 for 17 from the field, and it's Dixon, the 6'5" guard, who's like getting over screens, getting skinny, being able to have those rear view contests, forcing a bunch of tough shots. So he's been terrific. And I don't think, even when Seth Trimble comes back, I don't think his minutes are going anywhere because he impacts winning and has been a two-way player and makes open shots. And guys like that, freshmen like that, tend to stay in a rotation regardless of who comes back.
All right, guys, I'm staying in the ACC for my final shot here. I want to talk about Chance Mallory. We had him 55th in the country last year. Again, that was higher than any other national outlet. He has, I think, even exceeded that mark, averaging 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. But how about this? This is the best part. The shooting splits, 48% from the floor, 48% from the three-point line, and 80% from the free throw line. Oh, yeah, he's getting over 2 steals per game and only committing 1 turnover. Now, it would be real easy to say, oh, those numbers are unsustainable. Let me tell you a little bit about his numbers in the Under Armour circuit in high school when he was 45% from the floor, 38% from the three-point line, and 90% from the free throw line when the opposing defense is keying on him every single time. By the way, he won multiple championships with Team Thrill in the Under Armour Association. So why was the rest of the industry down on him? Well, it's because he doesn't have prototypical high major size. He's listed at 5'10". That's probably an exaggeration, but this guy is a straight bulldog. He is exceptionally skilled. He's an ultimate winner. He boxes for fun, I think. I think that was like one of his habits growing up, and he is bringing that mentality to the floor. Virginia has been phenomenal. They are winning games at a rapid rate. This guy is 3rd on the team in scoring, 2nd in assists, 3rd in rebounding. He's probably 5'8", and 1st in steals. He's also in the 96th percentile of all Division I basketball in catch and shoot shots. He's exactly what we said coming out of high school. He's ultra reliable. He's got an elite skill level with the ball, deep range, quick release, and he impacts winning from day one, just like he did in high school and the Under Armour Association. All right, you're not going to want to go anywhere. We're coming right back. Ebos and I are going to go through some of this year's high school seniors and the latest recruiting intel coming up next on the CBS Sports Network. Welcome back into the CBS Sports Network, where now it is time to talk about the latest recruiting intel. And Bossi, first of all, let me preface with this. Anyone who hasn't been to 24/7 Sports in the last 24 hours should go check out the Branham Report, where our own Travis Branham has dropped his latest recruiting nuggets on some of the best unsigned prospects. But as we always do, Boss, I want to get your take on this. So Trav yesterday reported that Deron Rippey is, he's down to 5 schools, but he says it's a 2-horse race with a leader. My question is, what is your take on that?
So Deron Rippey, the number 16 player in the class of 2026, physical athletic point guard. As I said, he's down to Duke, Miami, NC State, Tennessee, and Texas. But really, it's a Duke-NC State battle. And while I love my coworker Travis to death, I do think this one is a lot closer than we've discussed. I think it's really coming down to the wire with NC State and Duke being neck and neck. I don't personally see a leader in this one. And I do think it's going to be coming to conclusion sometime, maybe as soon within the next couple of weeks. But I think it's one where there's still an opportunity for either John Shire or Will Wade to move ahead of the other one in this one. It's a razor thin margin.
All right, very interesting. Deron Rippey, I have written this. I thought he was the best point guard in high school basketball this fall. He's currently ranked number 2, but certainly has a chance to take over that spot before it's all said and done. Dynamic athlete, great speed, great leaper, tremendous on-ball defender. He's been very well coached, but this guy gets better with each passing year, and the shooting is the best example of that. He's really transformed his game on that end of the floor. Want to stay in that tri-state area and talk to you about Dylan Mingo now. He's a unsigned top 10 prospect. He's down to 4. Travis is reporting yesterday that UNC is leading. Baylor was in second, according to his report, but this could be evolving, Ebos. What's the latest?
Yeah, I do think it's evolving. North Carolina is one that went from being kind of seen as an afterthought in the Mingo recruitment to, once he took his visit to Chapel Hill, really making up a lot of ground and becoming a serious factor. While Baylor is always there, has been there, and Penn State has always been right there. Washington is kind of a throw-in as that 4 school. I don't really see them being a factor. I think people keep forgetting that, his brother Caden is at Penn State, and that could be a big factor in this. So I'm not ready to rule out Penn State just yet, and I'm not ready to call North Carolina the leader just yet. And I think even Travis got in touch with us today and said that it may be a little bit closer than he had reported on things. So this is one I think it's one to watch. I could see a decision on this one maybe as soon as within the next 10 days or so, or somewhere in the 10-day to 2-week time frame. Like I said, a little bit of a toss-up. North Carolina's made a huge comeback in this. Now, have they closed enough ground to be the true leader yet? That I'm not so sure of. We'll learn a lot more about this one over the next week.
All right, going to be interesting to see. Want to talk to you now about Christian Collins, a top 10 prospect in the national class. He was one of 2 5-stars that we were kind of expecting to go to Kentucky before the early signing period came to a close. That period now has come to a close. He did not commit or at least sign with Kentucky. So my question is very simply, what's going on here?
A lot of things are at play, and we weren't the only ones who thought he was going to Kentucky. I think that Christian or those close to him had basically indicated to the other schools recruiting him that the decision was going to be Kentucky. So if you look at maybe the 2 most prominent other ones, the locals, USC and UCLA, they pretty much thought that the Collins ship had sailed. There's been some talks that maybe there's still some finalization going on with the NIL deal, which is going to be a big part with any major recruit these days. And I think there's been some speculation about maybe he's worried about the way the Kentucky season has started. I don't think that's as big of a factor as it is just making sure he really wants to go that far away from home for college. I think there's some pull to stay home by some of those close to him, not from a, hey, we don't want you at Kentucky standpoint, but from a, hey, we want to be able to see you on a regular basis standpoint. So I don't think Kentucky's grip on this one is totally lost just yet. And I would still consider them a slight favorite on it. But if you're Mark Pope and his staff, you certainly have to have a little bit of concern of, what the heck's going on here. And if you're Mick Cronin or Eric Musselman, or maybe even someone else who wants to try and get involved, you got to be really turning the heat up on this one. So I'm not ready to push the panic button just yet if I'm Kentucky. But if this thing doesn't wrap up by Christmas or New Year at the latest, then it's time to get really, really concerned on top of the, legitimate, early concern that there is right now.
All right, another guy who we were expecting to commit to Kentucky early on, and our reporting would verify this in recent weeks, really even recent months at this point, was Tyran Stokes, the number 1 overall ranked prospect in the country. And you've talked at length on this show about, he's down to 3. He's got the Nike NIL deal. He's got Kentucky. He's got Oregon in his final 3. He also has Kansas, who is an Adidas school. They are not giving up. But then on Tuesday night, bizarrely, he posted a scholarship offer from Vanderbilt. And again, this is someone who has said he has a list of 3 final schools. Vanderbilt was not one of them. Vanderbilt's 9-0. So my question, Bossi, is this opening back up? Is Vandy for real? What are we to make of that social media post?
Yeah, also on top of all this, you've got him leaving Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame, and going to Rainier Beach in Seattle. So you've got a school switch on top of all this. Now, I don't know that people are looking at Vanderbilt as a serious threat just yet, but I'll tell you a few things about Vanderbilt. Number one, they definitely have some resources, and they are committed to using them. They just recently pulled off, it's football versus basketball, but they just flipped the number 1 ranked player in the composite rankings, the number 3 player at 24/7, Jared Curtis, a top flight quarterback who had been committed to Georgia. Now, Curtis is a Nashville native, but people laughed when they went after him, and there started being rumblings about he could flip him. So you do have to keep that in mind. Different sport, different staffs, but Vanderbilt has proven they're willing to go toe to toe with the big boys on this one. Now they've got a whole lot of ground to make up just in terms of relationships and things of that nature, if they want to be a real serious contender with Stokes. But they certainly have the resources to be a contender, and that's a big factor in this. I would still say that Kentucky maybe makes the most sense if there doesn't want to be any issues with the Nike NIL deal, but Kansas is pushing really, really hard. I would say Kansas probably has the best relationship with Tyran Stokes, and that transfer to Rainier Beach is a good thing for Kansas. Their assistant, Curtis Townsend, who's the lead assistant on Tyran, has recruited several players out of Rainier Beach, most notably Jamal Crawford, who he recruited in Michigan, who is now on staff at Rainier Beach with his son, JJ, a freshman there, maybe the best freshman in the country. And Jamal Crawford is extremely close with Kurt Townsend. And I don't think that's something that hurts Kansas's pursuit of Tyran Stokes.
Very interesting stuff as it comes to the number one ranked prospect in the country. The newest member of the 2026 class is Bruce Branch. We talked about him last week. He's been inserted at number 8 overall in the class, but definitely has a chance to continue to climb. Travis reported in yesterday's Branham report that BYU, Louisville, and USC are 3 schools to monitor. He called BYU the biggest threat thus far. What else do we know about where Bruce Branch is at in his process?
Yeah, they're running a pretty clandestine type recruitment where they're not giving a lot of information on it. We're going to hear other schools like Kansas, Kentucky, Arizona, especially since he's an Arizona native who played with Koa Pete, who's starring as a freshman, same agent, mind you. We're going to hear them mentioned, but I agree with Travis's on this one. I think what BYU is doing with AJ Devonsa this year is a huge selling point, and it's pretty easy to see a natural pathway for him to go in, take over those minutes, and certainly BYU has resources that are going to compete with that. BYU, USC, they're certainly making their pitch. They've got USC and Louisville, mind you. Louisville definitely has resources. USC, I'm not sure they have quite the resources in basketball to compete with those guys. It may be a little bit different in football, but they're there. But I agree. I would put Brigham Young probably as best we can as the early team to beat in this one.
And remember, it's not just AJ Devonsa, but Yegor Demin was a lottery pick for you last year as well. Last guy I want to ask you about is Bruce Branch's high school teammate, prolific prep. That's Caleb Holt. You mentioned Arizona just a moment ago. Travis reported yesterday that they have gained serious traction. Caleb previously had a top 3 of Alabama, Houston, and Arizona. So do you concur with that assessment that the Wildcats are establishing themselves, these are my words, as a leader in this process at this point?
Yeah, I think if I had to go with the leader, I would go with Arizona in this one right now as well. You can't discount the experience that Caleb Holt had playing for Tommy Lloyd in USA basketball. They were able to develop a good relationship there. He's extremely close with Koa Pete. And while Koa Pete is 99.9999% out of there after this year and won't be there when Caleb Holt would get there, from what I've heard, his feedback to Caleb has been very good, and that's been taken very well. And just the entire Arizona staff has made a strong impression on Holt and his family. Now, Nate Oates is not going to go down without a fight in this one. I was in Dallas a couple weeks ago. Nate Oates was front and center, by himself, mind you, without an assistant. Whenever people really follow recruiting, when the head coach starts showing up by himself, no assistant, that's a big sign of how bad he wants a guy. Normally, these guys are notorious for never going to see guys by themselves. So, Nate is taking this one personally on wanting to get Caleb Holt back home to Alabama for his college. So I wouldn't totally rule out Alabama just yet, and they are right there nipping at the heels. Houston has been in a pretty good spot, but I think they're maybe sliding a little bit on this one. And Arizona and certainly Alabama would be the 2 that I'd really be focused on right now.
All right, good stuff from Ebos as always as we break down 6 of the best available prospects in the national class of 2026. Ebos, we appreciate you, my man. Don't go anywhere. Trotter's coming back, and we are talking about the opening of the Big Ten Conference play right here on the CBS Sports Network. Welcome back into the CBS Sports Network, where now we are going to break down the Big Ten. They are already in league play, and we're going to continue to do this through the next couple of weeks, kind of do a reassessment, if you will, of some of the best conferences in college basketball. And Trotter, that is actually my opening question. I know you know this, but it was 25 years ago, the last time a Big Ten school won a national championship. Right now, though, they've got 6 ranked teams, 3 in the top 10, 12 in the top 50 of KenPom. So my question to you is this: is the Big Ten the best conference in college basketball?
Not throughout the first month. It's been the Big 12, and I think the guys at the top of the Big 12 have certainly earned that reputation with the first month performances of teams like Arizona and Iowa State. You go down the list. But I do think the Big Ten will pass them when it's said and done here in the next couple months. I think there's a chance for the Big Ten to have that perfect mix of like, hey, we got like 4 teams we think could win the title. And then we have like 8 more teams that are probably going to make the NCAA tournament. I don't think 12 NCAA tournament teams is out of the realm of possibility at all for the Big Ten. And even some of the bottom feeders, like Minnesota has shown a lot more teeth than I think some initially expected. Northwestern is not going to be an easy out. Even a team like Nebraska, like they were picked toward the bottom of the league, and they look like potentially like a top 25 team. So I do think the Big Ten will end up passing the Big 12, even though it is the Big 12's crown for now.
All right. I have picked what I thought were like the 3 favorites. And I did this because I know you're from the Chicago area, and I wanted to leave Illinois out just to try and like get under your skin a little bit. So we are going to talk about Michigan, who I think is very possibly the best team in college basketball, Purdue, who's previously ranked number 1, and then Michigan State, who I think is just exceeding expectations and becoming more than the sum of their individual parts. Let's start with Michigan. Dusty May's squad is number 2 overall in the AP. They're number 1 overall in KenPom. They've got the best defense analytically in the sport, a top 15 offense. They're playing really fast, and they're huge. They start those 3 bigs, but they are not playing them together quite as consistently, which I think has really helped their offensive flow and floor spacing. But what is it, in your opinion, that is the kind of secret sauce, if you will, of this squad?
I think it's the rim protection. Teams are shooting just 36% at the rim against Michigan when Adayamara is on the floor. That would be the best mark in like college basketball history that I can find. Like we are talking about an all-time rim defense. And I think the ripple effects of that are, hey, now all of our really big, strong athletes can switch everything on the perimeter. We're keeping everything in front. You get nothing at the paint. And like that Villanova game at one point earlier this week, Michigan had outscored Villanova 30-2 in paint points. That's not like normal stuff that they're doing. So Michigan has a really talented roster. There's 5-star transfers, 5-star prospects everywhere across that group. But the way that they're doing this is really built on a defense that has a chance to go down as one of the all-time greats.
No arguments here. They're also 65% from the floor on 2-point field goals. And oh yeah, they're a good offensive rebounding team too. So if they do miss it, they go get it. Purdue, currently 6th in the AP, 5th overall in KenPom. Michigan has the best defense in the sport. Purdue has the best offense analytically. They're 26th overall in defense. As we know, they play ultra slow, but they are a great offensive rebounding team. They're a very good passing team, playing with those 2 bigs as we talked about last week, and obviously they have Braden Smith. So again, same question, Trotter. What is the secret sauce for the Boilermakers?
This year, I do think it is that offensive rebounding. Their ability to go into the portal and get an Oscar Clough and then move Trey Kaufman-Renn to the 4. Trey Kaufman-Renn has basically told everybody and anybody that you are not boxing me out this year. His offensive rebound rate has doubled compared to what it was last year. You just don't see that from many players very often. When those 2 guys are on the floor together, Purdue is corralling 50% of their misses. That's a ludicrous stat right there alone. So like that's the type of offense that you're getting when, hey, we generate great shots, we don't turn it over, and then when we miss, we're rebounding half of those. That's a really, really good combination. But we will learn a lot about them moving forward because that loss to Iowa State like may have shook them to their core a little bit. Like they got overwhelmed was the word that Matt Painter used after that. I'm curious to see the bounce back effort from that. Very similar to last year. They got overwhelmed by Auburn earlier in the year. When their turn came again in the NCAA tournament later against a similar super athletic Houston team, they were up to the task.
Well, I think Iowa State may have provided a little bit of a blueprint, too. We know that the Cyclones like to turn you over, but they made 3s in that game. And when you dig into Purdue's defensive analytics, that's a vulnerability because they do give up 3s. So that's going to be something interesting to watch. All right, Michigan State, Tom Izzo, 9 in AP, 12 in KenPom, 6th best defense, top 40 offense. They, too, play slow. They don't shoot a lot of 3s, but this is just old school Tom Izzo, like defend, rebound, take care of the basketball. Like this is what every old school high school basketball coach is actively rooting for right now because they are just, this is quintessential Tom Izzo basketball. But is there a secret sauce beyond this, or maybe it's just their point guard?
Maybe a little bit of both. I look at that front court. I think Carson Cooper and Jackson Kohler are forming maybe the best defensive front court duo in the sport. They have been outstanding, and they aren't like amazing leapers. They don't have like this insane athleticism, but they're always in the right place at the right time. And it's like they feel like offensive linemen from the Midwest, where they're just tough, smart, and dependable. And every single possession, they're making good decisions defensively. Jeremy Fears, their point guard, is obviously leveled up and really turns things on at the point of attack, gets them out in transition, gets Michigan State looking like Michigan State basketball again. But I really do think these bigs, Cooper and Kohler specifically, are playing their role as well as you could have hoped for.
Jeremy Fears averaging 10 assists against just 2 turnovers per game. It has been impressive to say the least. I worry a little bit about their backcourt depth. I wish they had one more guard and just a little bit more firepower. All right, those were the 3 teams that I deemed favorites, although, again, this was no intentional disrespect to Illinois. We're going to talk about the Fighting Illini now, because there is a long list of contenders. And Trotter, when it comes to Brad Underwood's club, they are 13th overall in the AP, but they're top 10 overall in KenPom. And for those who don't know, KenPom.com is basically the most cited analytics site in college basketball. So top 10 team by those metrics, 5th best offense, top 25 defense. You have seen this team a ton. We're not going to waste time with me telling you about them. What is it that makes this group special?
They're the best front court shooting team in the nation. Illinois' 4 premier front court guys have combined for 51 threes in 10 games. That's really good math, and it really opens up everything else. The paint is usually wide open and clear for guys like Andre Stojakovic and Kylan Boswell to get downhill, but it's really the freshmen that have tied everything together. We talked about Keaton Wagler earlier, but him and David Mirkovic are guys that, like, Brad Underwood is now giving the ball to most, because Stojakovic and Boswell are actually better when they're playing off the ball, able to attack some of those defenses. So Wagler and Mirkovic specifically have been huge triggers for them. And then you factor in their three-point shooting and their size and a bit more defensive bite this year. Illinois is pretty good. Like, they have a real chance here, and we'll see if they can get up to that elite level and keep stacking some of those defensive plays and winning time that really, kind of hurt them last year. But I think they have found something with this backcourt, because Wagler doesn't play like a freshman, Mirkovic doesn't play like a freshman, and there's a ton of talent, and these bigs just rain fire from downtown.
All right, there's a lot more teams we could talk about here, but we are running out of time. UCLA is legit. USC with Chad Baker-Mazara, Rodney Rice, they are fun. Ohio State, I think they're legit as well. 36 overall at KenPom, but I would be remiss if I didn't give a quick shout out to Nebraska, undefeated. They take 52% of their shots from behind the three-point line. They are fun to watch. Fred Hoiberg's club just dismantled Wisconsin the other night. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on the CBS Sports Network. Zach Edey and Derek Lively are the latest young NBA big men to go down with injury, and unfortunately, this is reflective of a greater trend. In fact, if you look at the first-round draft picks who are big men in 2023 and 2024, they have played an average of 56 games per season. We're going to dig into this topic a lot next week on CBSSports.com. We're going to talk about what goes into making the game more injury-prone than ever, especially for big men, and what scouting departments can do in their pre-draft preparation to address it. That's going to be next week, CBSSports.com. Until then, head on over to 247sports.com for all your recruiting intel. And as always, you can watch this show in replay as well as past shows if you missed anything from the early signing period on the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube page. We will see you next week, and thanks as always for watching.